not been able to join us so far, but it is 6:31. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to start off by saying good evening, everyone. Welcome to our virtual town hall. We are excited to see many of you attending and watching live on Facebook. Please be sure to share this town hall event on your social media outlets. Our number one goal is to get Democrats elected to office. You may have noticed that here on Zoom, you have been placed on mute. This is to keep all background noise out of the meeting and no interruptions to the speakers. In the invitation and in the Facebook event page, you will see a link to make a donation to Katherine's campaign. Please show your support and make a donation today. That is an ActBlue account that you can make the donation. So I do want to say I want to get this started. I am Thom Hanson, your MC for the evening. I'm the current county chair of the Hill County Democratic Party and the newly elected SDEC Committeeman for Senate District 22. We have a great program for you tonight. Our guest speakers that are scheduled is the Honorable Gilberto Hinojosa, SDEC Committeewoman Tammie Hartgroves, McLennan County Democratic Chair Mary Duty, and our moderator for the evening is Mary Mann. And of course, our guest of honor is Miss Katherine Turner-Pearson. I do see that Bill Brandon has entered. Bill, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Do you know if the chairman will be able to join us?
Thom, I just saw your text. I thought he was going to join. I'm going to try to text him now.
Okay. All right. Well, while we're waiting to see if the Chairman Hinojosa can join us, we're going to go ahead and go just a little bit further. We're going to go with our next guest speaker is a lifelong Democratic activist, past president of the Texas Democratic Women, past president of the Texas Democratic Women of Central Texas, and current treasurer, and the Senate District 22 Committeewoman of the State Democratic Executive Committee since 2016. It is with great pleasure to introduce Tammie Hartgroves.
Thank you, Thom, and hello to everyone out there in cyberspace. I am delighted to be on this Zoom with Katherine Turner-Pearson. Didn't know until she was running 2 years ago that we went to the same elementary school. She was a year behind me, but anyway, we both were Midway Elementary School alums. So have known Katherine off and on several years as a person who took a commitment years ago to promote and mentor women for political life and to be elected to political positions. It just thrills me to death, the number of women we have up and down our ballot this time. It thrills me with Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. But as much as we can be excited and be thrilled, we have to turn that into votes on election day. We have to get these people into office. We have to flip 9 seats in the Texas House for the Democratic Party to have a voice in redistricting. And so we need everyone to get out there and vote. We've got to find ways, even through this pandemic, to do voter registration. And we've got to fight for our future, our children's future, grandchildren, our democracy, and our nation. It scares me the way we're headed. Last night I heard that Russia has a vaccine for COVID that's close. And, you know, my comment was, I wouldn't take anything from Russia. But y'all, we've got to get out there. We need 5 to 8% increase in our rural counties to get our candidates from the courthouse to the White House elected. And I appreciate every one of you so much. You do not know the energy and the excitement Thom and I get from being with you. Although we can't be in person and hug and shake hands, whatever, we still can see you on Facebook and on these Zoom meetings. And it's not the same, but it's still getting to see you. I pray all of you keep safe, keep your families safe, wear your mask. And, you know, remember, we've got, what, 83 days until Election Day? So that's, you know, less than 3 months. We've got to bust our tails to get our candidates elected. Thank you all. Can't wait to hear from Katherine. And that's all I have.
I saw that I was muted. Thank you very much, Tammie. Appreciate, as always, you being here and with us. I see that our chairman has joined us, so I'm going to make his introduction. So our next guest speaker is a man that I admire greatly. Born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley, he attended public schools and graduated from Pan American University in Georgetown University Law Center. In his public life, he has served as a county court at law judge, a district judge, an appellate judge, and Cameron County judge. As a political leader, he has also served as Cameron County Democratic Party chair, a member of the Democratic National Committee, and on the executive committee of the DNC. In 2012, he was elected chairman of the Texas Democratic Party and re-elected in 2016. Under his leadership, the Texas Democratic Party has made great advancements in field organization, fundraising, digital communications, press communications, candidate recruitment, and innovative uses of data and metrics. The Texas Democratic Party is recognized as one of the premier state parties, and Texas is recognized as the nation's largest battleground state. It is with great honor I introduce our Texas Democratic Chair, my friend, the Honorable Gilberto Hinojosa.
Thank you, Thom. I'm sorry I got on a little late. I had a different information on my calendar than what Bill Brandon sent me in. But anyway, it's great to be with y'all today, and great to be with Katherine Turner, our next state representative. Look, let's get down to exactly why we're here and what we want to do and what we need to do. We have a Democratic Party in the state of Texas that there is no other party in the country that's equal to us. I mean, we have any state party. We have the most advanced tools available to be able to win elections in the state. I have 100 people working for our party that are calling every single day, trying to contact as many voters as they can all across the state of Texas, texting, digitally contacting persons through social media, and doing everything possible to engage in a strong campaign during this time of COVID-19. And they have been successful. As you saw 2 weekends ago, they were able to make contact with 1.5 million people. Last weekend, they contacted 2 million people. In 2 weeks, we've contacted 3.5 million people, either by phone or by text or our different mechanisms that we have available to do that. There's nobody that's even close to that. We've never done that in our party before. No other state party has ever done that, particularly almost 3 months out from the election. But we have to be better than what we've ever been before in order to win this election. You know, we see the polling out there, the polling showing us doing very well, you know, with respect to the state house seats that we have candidates running, like Katherine's seats. All our polling is showing that people in the state rather see Democrats in the state house than Republicans, because they know, they have experience. They've seen what Republicans will do and will not do during the time they've been in charge of this state house, and they don't want any more of that. And for good reason, because what do? They spend their time passing legislation that goes after people who are just citizens trying to make a good life. They failed to fund public education. They failed to provide adequate training adequate funding to ensure that every child that wants to go to college can go to college. They refuse to accept free money, $100 billion of money provided to them by the federal government under the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Money that would not only have covered 1 million Texans that don't have access to health care today, but that would have created 200,000 good paying jobs in this state. And why? No reason other than politics. This is what they think, the way they think. They'd rather spend their time trying to prevent people from using bathrooms than trying to fund classrooms and emergency rooms and hospital rooms in our state. And this is the demented philosophy of this party. I was looking at a Facebook posting or a text email that I got today from the party from the chair of the other party, and it shows him next to a motorcycle with an automatic weapon. And this is what they do and what they represent in this state. And so that's why people are tired of them. You know, we're looking, if you look at how we're doing in the U.S. Senate race, MJ Hagar went from 14 points down within a week, jumped up to 6 points down, and she's gaining on Cornyn. Why? Because people have seen that this man doesn't do anything except is a bootlicker for Donald Trump and any on all of his cohorts. He doesn't fight for Texans on working families. He doesn't fight for children in our state. He doesn't fight for women. He fights to make sure that oil companies and rich corporations get as much of the pie as they can and leave us without. If you look at the polling for the Texas Supreme Court, you know, we haven't won a Supreme Court race in over 30 years. Nathan Heck, who's the Chief Justice, has been there for 30 years. Guess what? Our candidate for the Supreme Court's tied right now in the polling. And that's because we still got a long way to go in organizing all across the state of Texas. You know, and in the president's race, 5 successive polls have showed Joe Biden ahead. One of them showed him tied with Trump. Before that, if you go a year back, virtually all of them showed Joe Biden within the margin of error. So this is where our state is headed because they've seen the Democrats like Katherine Turner have answers to their problems, want to do something to resolve their problems, want to make all the difference that they can to ensure that people who sit up at night at their kitchen table and trying to figure out how they're going to make it, how they're going to pay their bills, how they're going to be able to ensure that Juanito or Johnny have a good education, how are they going to make sure that Jane is able to get into college when they don't have any money to pay the tuition, how are they going to make sure that they have access to health care, all these things that mothers and fathers worry about every single night, mothers and mothers, fathers and fathers, grandmothers and daughters worry about. These are the things that people like Katherine who are running for the state house are fighting for and are making a commitment to do once they get elected. And they're out there and they're working, like you said, Tammie, they're working their butts off. They're making sure that they talk to as many people as possible because they know that what's at stake. Katherine doesn't want to be a state rep so that she can have a little pin on her lapel that says that she's a state rep. She wants to be a state rep because she wants to make a difference in the lives of Texas families. And that's what we need, that kind of leadership in the state house. So now it's up to us. It's like Tammie said, we got to do more than what we've ever done. We got to work harder than we've ever worked. We've got to call more people than we've ever called. We've got to text more people than we've ever texted. We need to do more in this election than we ever have done before because we need to elect Katherine Turner and the other Democrats running for the state house and all the other Democrats that I've talked about. Let me tell you something. We're doing great in Texas. We're the greatest battleground state in Texas. In the country, the biggest battleground state in the country, and everybody's making a big thing about Texas turning blue this election cycle. Republicans are watching this. They understand that they're in trouble, and if you think that they're just going to sit back and let us roll over on them, you got something else coming to you. They're going to work. They're going to spend money, and they got access to a lot more money than we do. They've got the ability to raise millions of dollars to pump them into their get out the vote campaign. And they're going to do it. So don't think that they're going to sit around and just, you know, worry about whether or not Texas is going to flip. They're going to work. And so that means we got to even work harder than what we thought we had to work. Katherine needs to win. She needs to win for her kids. She needs to win for our mothers and fathers. She needs to win for working people so that people can have a living wage in this state. She needs to work. She knows she has to work because families deserve to have access to health care. She knows that she has to work because her children and my children and your children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren need to have a planet that's going to sustain them after the next 20 years. That's important. I don't know how more, what can be more important than to save our planet. So folks, everything's on the line this election. Our democracy's on the line. And so if we win and we turn the state blue, we will win. We will win. Our democracy wins. Our country wins, and our world will win. Let's get out there and work. Let's get Katherine elected, and don't worry about celebration until 7:01 after election night. And at that time, you can do whatever you want to celebrate. But before then, I just want every single one of y'all to work your asses off between now and the second Tuesday of November of this year. Thanks a lot, and God bless each and every one of you, and go get them, Katherine.
Thank you, Chairman. I tell you what, every single time that I hear you speak, it to me is like almost being at the state convention. It fires me up and gets me ready to go on for the next election. I really appreciate you being here. You're just wonderful to listen to. So again, thank you very much.
I got to get on another meeting, so thank you so much. And Katherine, good luck. Let us know what we need to do to make you the next state representative of your district, and keep up all the hard work, everybody.
Send Doc Anderson home. Thank you, guys.
Okay, well, let's go on to our next guest speaker. Our next speaker grew up in a small farm in Central Texas. After graduating from Baylor in 1972, she moved to Washington, D.C. and worked for the Baptist Joint Committee on Public Affairs, now the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty. She worked in the U.S. House of Representatives as a legislative aide for Representative Les Aspin. She served during the Watergate era. Mary has spent 17 years in the classroom teaching American history and government. After 40 years of marriage, 5 children, and 7 grandchildren, Mary returned to her love of all things political. As a chronic volunteer, Mary has been county chair of the McLennan County Democratic Party since 2014. It is with great pleasure and honor for me to introduce a dear and close friend, Mary Duty.
Well, Thom, that's just downright embarrassing. Thank you very much. I sat here as I was listening to everybody, and I'm real bad about just talking off the cuff. I made some notes here, and they're real tiny, so you'll have to bear with me. Katherine, remember when Dennis Bonnen, when Speaker Bonnen and what's his name had that little taped conversation that came out? It is stuck in my brain that one of those guys said, "Oh, Doc's one of us," as they were making those backroom deals, you know, with the State House to try to run out some of the more reasonable Republicans and put in some of the empowered Texas Republicans. Doc's one of us. Well, if Doc's one of them, who's for us, the citizens of McLennan County? And that's when it became crystal clear that you are the person that we need for House District 56. You're the one that's going to represent us. And we knew that when you ran before, and you ran a valiant race at a time when, you know, you didn't come out at the end where we wanted you to be, but you're back. And you're back with more wisdom and more understanding about what needs to be done to make this happen. And I am just thrilled to death that you're running. And I want to make sure that everybody understands you know education policy. You have a slant on healthcare policy as to what we need with the Medicare expansion, especially on our property tax issues, which is a huge issue here in Central Texas and all over Texas. Your experience on the appraisal board has given you a perspective that I think you can take to Austin and do great things when it comes to finding out what we can do in terms of education spending. So I'm really thrilled that you're bringing that expertise in there. and I know you have a perspective on what it's going to take to undo the damage that this administration has done to the health of our communities. I want everybody to understand exactly how hardworking Katherine is and how dedicated she is, and how she, well, if y'all don't know this, Katherine is an archaeologist, and she deals in facts, you know, and she's a data-driven kind of person, and she's going to make an incredible House District 56 person. What we've got to do, though, is do exactly what Gilberto said, but I'm going to add something else. We need to work hard. We need to work hard, but we need to work smart. We need to work smart. We need to make sure that we have coalitions going between communities, and we need the slate card that the party's buying has Katherine on there. So we're going to get name recognition for Katherine Turner-Pearson. We're gonna do everything we can as a party to get your name out there for people and who you are, because we're gonna be we're gonna start that fire, Katherine, with little twigs and seeds, and then we're gonna put some we're gonna put some little leaves on it, and it's gonna, you know, then we're gonna throw a little log on it, and then finally it's gonna be this roaring fire that's gonna sweep across this district, and then we'll send you to Austin. Okay. It's absolutely critical that we hear from you, and and it's time to make some noise. I'm going to encourage you to. Right now, we've got kids going to school, and I'm not sure we need to have kids going to school. I know it's a real touchy issue, but now's the time to contrast yourself with Doc. And I go straight back to Bonin when that guy said, "Oh, Doc, he's one of us. He's one of that inside group there in Austin. Don't worry about him. We've got Doc. We can take care of Doc voting the way we want him to vote." Well, guess what? We don't need Doc. We need you. That's all I got, because I want to go to work for Katherine.
Well, I'm sure at this time that she would gladly let you come and help her campaign and to make phone calls and send out postcards. So we're going to go on with our moderator is Mary Mann. She is a lifelong House Board, McLennan County resident. Mary graduated from Mart High School and the University of North Texas with a degree in speech, RTV, and history. Mary volunteered with Hallsburg, McLennan County, and the Texas District's 9 PTAs, becoming a leadership trainer and honorary lifetime member. She volunteered with her parish and diocesan religious education programs for 28 years. In 1989, she became a teammate graduate and taught secondary English and speech for 21 years. She volunteered with Meals on Wheels for 10 years. She is currently a precinct chair and secretary for the McLennan County Democratic Party. Mary has been a member of the Texas Democratic Movement of Central Texas for 20 years and is currently the immediate past chapter president. But before we turn this over to Mary, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest of honor. And on November the 3rd, voters in the Texas House District 56 will choose a state representative, which encompasses Waco and most of McLennan County. I first met Katherine during her campaign for House District 56 in 2018, and the last 2 years since, I have come to respect her desire to be a strong voice for everyday hardworking Texans. Katherine loves Waco and Central Texas and has the energy, personality, communication, and problem-solving skills to represent your concerns in Austin. Katherine believes it's time to infuse this Texas state legislature with fresh energy, fresh ideas, and a fresh start. Republicans, Democrats, and Independents have a lot of work to do in order to restore Texas to its rightful place of leadership in education, in job creation, and civil rights, and optimism about America's future. Katherine Turner-Pearson is the person we need to represent the interests, needs, and hopes of all of the people of District 56 in Austin. Katherine will have a few minutes to address everyone, tell us about her campaign, and then I will turn the evening over to the moderator. So it is with the honor and privilege to introduce my friend, our next state representative, Katherine Turner-Pearson.
Thank you, Thom. Thank you so much for everything you just said. And I want to thank, I think he's already left, Mr. Hinojosa, Chairman Hinojosa, for all his kind words too. Why I'm running is very simple, very simple. This is where I grew up. I'm a third generation here in McLennan County. I have grew up here. I went to public school for 12 years here, went to elementary with Tammie Hartgroves, and a lot of other people that it's a small community. We all are like 6 degrees of separation from each other. And this is my stomping grounds. These are the people I love. This is my community. I can't even imagine living anywhere else. As an archaeologist, there are opportunities for me to live all over the world, much less across the United States. And I have fought hard to find a way to stay here because this is my community. And I did not set out in life to be a politician or to run for office. But a few years ago, I just started getting fed up. Nothing was getting done in Austin. There was so much that needed to be done. We weren't getting the representation we needed. We were falling behind. The property taxes were going sky high. Our schools were being funded less and less. Schools were struggling. Our community was struggling. The poverty rate was going higher and higher. People were being left behind. Race issues were still there. And it just seemed like not only were we not getting ahead, we were falling behind. And I went to my opponent, Doc Anderson, to talk to him about issues. And all I got was the runaround. He would change the subject. He would pivot here, pivot there, like the career politician he was. And at the end, he'd offer you a coffee mug. Yay. You know, that's not what I was there for. I understand so much about the issues in this town and where people are really hurting. And I've been with them. There have been times when I struggled to pay my bills. When I went to college, nobody was paying for it. I have student loans to this day that are larger than my mortgage. I struggled to get where I am now. I struggled to make ends meet. And I have friends that have too. I've been in their shoes. I know what it's like. And I love them enough to say, okay, well, I like digging in square holes. Let me take this education. Let's take this experience and let's go down to Austin and let's change things. Let's make a difference. And as far as being bought and paid for by PACs, it's not going to happen with me. People have tried to buy my favor before on stuff. And that's the one thing about archaeologists. We've got two things going for us: the knowledge in our heads and our ethics. And I know that I can't be bought and sold. So I will be down in Austin representing the people of this community and doing what is right for everyone in McLennan County, no matter which side you're on, Republican or Democrat. I will always have my door open to you. I will have town halls like this. If we have to be virtual, we'll be virtual. If we can be live, we'll do it live. But I will have my door open. I will listen to you, and I will do what's right for this community, not what's right by PACs. And I don't want to talk much longer because I want to get to the questions that the people have, because that's what we're here for. Not to hear me talk, but to answer your questions. So I'm ready for it. Bring on the questions and let's have a conversation. Oh, and this is my home. I decided to just invite you to my home so we can have a little chat. So grab your favorite beverage. For those of you, it's happy hour. Go right ahead. Or a cup of coffee or tea. I'm having my water because I'm hydrating. It's hot out there. And let's just have a conversation.
Well, thank you very much, Katherine. At this time, I am going to turn the town hall over to Mary Mann.
Thank you, Thom, very much. We'll get started with our questions. And one of the things that we've heard on the news today in McLennan County, our positivity rate for the COVID virus has gone up to 24% today.
Oh, no.
And what can leaders of our state do right now to lower this horrible positivity rate and see what we can do to stop this pandemic?
I wish I could just wave a magic wand and fix it, because it breaks my heart that we are going through this. It's something that none of us have ever gone through before. I personally have lost friends to COVID, and they would be alive today if it wasn't for this horrible disease. Some of our community leaders started out very well, shutting things down, pushing people to wear masks. I'm going to give kudos to the people that have done that. Our county commissioners worked hard at it. Mayor Deaver with Waco pushed for it very early on, and we were holding our numbers down. And unfortunately, the governor overrode what we were doing and forced us to start opening Texas before we were really ready. This is something that should have been left to our local community, our local leaders, so that those areas, the counties that were having trouble, could cut back and shut down, and those that were doing okay could ease back open. And that right was taken away from us. It wasn't until Nelson Wolff in San Antonio decided to find a loophole that we've been able to now have certain cities, their leaders have been able to shut down, well, not shut down, but to at least require masks in businesses by the employees and by the customers. We need to enforce that. If that is in place, it needs to be enforced. And that means a mask over your nose and your mouth. It does not mean a chin guard. And that needs to be enforced. Immediately, Abbott needs to give that control back to the cities and the counties so that they can enact the right controls for their community as first and foremost. The other thing is we can set an example. When I go out, if I am going to be around anybody, if I'm inside or outside, and I cannot keep, even outside, like 10 feet, I put a mask on. And I do not begrudge it. And I am a strong Texas woman, and I can handle wearing a mask. And I encourage everybody else to do that. I think setting an example is the first step. Our leaders have done too little, too late, and as far as the state has been concerned. So that's the first thing. We need to go back and give control locally. The other thing we need to do, the Texas legislature needs to get in there. We need to have a special session, and they need to make sure that we have testing with fast turnaround times. And then we need to have tracing. So if I find out that I have COVID, I can tell you where I've been over the last 2 weeks, and we have people who can start tracking the people down who don't even know they're exposed. And then we need to isolate those people so that we stop spreading it. And I really am unsure about the schools. You know, my hat is off to our school leaders right now that are having to make the decision on whether to open the schools or not. I do not think we are ready. I mean, I could go on for a long time, but those are the things that I really see with COVID right now. We just testing, tracing, masks, and give back control to their local government.
Okay, thank you very much. And along the same vein, you mentioned school openings at this point in time. Mm-hmm. What message do you have for teachers and the parents who are making those decisions right now this week as they face this new school year?
God bless you all. I have friends that are making this decision, and we've had long chats. And some of them have decided not to send their children back no matter what. They'll homeschool them, they'll quit their jobs, they'll do whatever they have to protect their children. Teachers, I have always admired the teachers, and I cannot admire you any more than I do right now. It's crazy. my message is do what you have to do to stay safe. Do what you have to do to protect your children. Make sure your children understand the best they can for what is age appropriate about wearing masks, and about washing their hands, and about distancing. I have to side on the side of the parents. If you think your children, in your opinion, should not go to school, they shouldn't go to school. You've got to make the decision for what you think is right for your family. And teachers, you got to do what you think is right for yourself. And that's not a popular thing right now. I have so many friends that are teachers, and there's not one that's not afraid right now. So I wish I could wave a magic wand and tell you exactly what to do, but I think it's a personal decision at this point. And parents, do what you have to do. And those of you who don't have kids at school, wear your masks. Try to keep this whole pandemic down so we can protect our teachers and we can protect our students. I mean, gosh, first we asked them to be the first line of defense in front of guns and be the protectors in case there's a mass shooting, and now we want them to be the protector for COVID too. We ask way too much of our teachers these days.
Thank you. Would you discuss for just a few moments your goals, your ideas that you would implement into bills to be presented in the next session of the legislature in regard to education, whether it's teacher pay, teacher retirement system, and vouchers?
Well, first, we'll just attack vouchers, because that was the last thing you mentioned. I'm totally against vouchers. I think I have a lot of my friends who have sent their kids to private school, and that's fine. But our Texas Constitution is set up to fund public education. And we are not doing that right now. And vouchers takes away from public education. For every voucher they give to go to a private school, they're taking funds away from our schools, and they can't afford to lose any more funds. They're underfunded now. So if you are privileged enough to be able to send your kids to a private school and you want to, that's fine. But we can't take away from public schools while you do that. As far as other legislation, we've used to fund, back when I was in school here in McLennan County, the Texas legislature funded about 65% of the school. 10 years ago, just one decade ago, 10 years ago, my opponent, Doc Anderson, was there in the Texas legislature. He was already there. He's been there for over 1.5 decades. And they funded about 50%. And he has voted every time to bring that funding down and down and down. And now we're at about 35% of the funding. I would push to get that back up to 50%. By not funding, it also pushes us to raise property taxes. Those two are mixed together. You can't lower property taxes if you don't fund the schools. So those are intertwined in a very convoluted way, but they're there. So I would push to get that back up to 50%. I also think STAR testing is just, it's just not working. I want to put more power back to the teachers. We have professionals that are teachers. They are highly educated. They have bachelor's degrees. They have master's degrees. Many have doctorates. I don't know of any other career where you can be that highly educated and then have people totally ignore you in your work. The teachers know how to teach. Let them teach. I want to see the teachers get more involved in how the school is run and put the power back in the teachers. Let's just get out of their way and let them do their job and let them teach. I don't know. Did I answer all your questions? There were several there.
I believe so, yes. In regard to education as well, what about getting back to training for trades and the skilled labor jobs that we face today?
I think we need to do a lot of that. You know, when I was in high school in the dark ages, I guess, I don't feel that old, but we did do a lot of skilled training. And we started doing some magnet schools and special schools here in McLennan County that were doing that, and we still do. And I think that's good. I also think tying in with some of the colleges, what we've been doing here in McLennan County, we need to do statewide, where while you get out of school, you're either doing extra work to get a trade, or your junior and senior year, if you want to be college bound, you are working on college courses so that you graduate from high school not with just a college degree, but you have a certificate of some sort for a skill, or you have an associate's degree that gives you 2 years towards your bachelor's degree. And I want to see that across the state.
All right, thank you. Let's move to climate change.
Oh.
What should Texas do to control carbon emissions, and how big is a priority is this for you?
Well, you know, in Texas, we talk about our big wide sky and our big clean air. So I think we kind of really should protect it. Let's take it really local to McLennan County. We have to worry about our air, and we have to worry about our water here on the climate. Obviously, as a scientist, I firmly understand. I don't just understand. I have actually taught at a college level how climate change. I've talked in the past about how the climate in ancient times and in the late paleo, time, it was hot, then it was cold, then it was hot, then it was cold. When we talk about climate change, of course, the weather changes. It's Texas. Give it 5 minutes. When we talk about climate change, we're talking about something that's happening more than a week or a month. And what is so alarming, and I want people to understand, is that climate change, it's warming, but it's warming at such a rapid pace that throughout human history, we have never seen it get this fast, this hot, this fast. And that sets off bells and whistles on people like myself that are scientists. It scares me. It scares me to death, because my generation's grandchildren are in big trouble. So we also want to have clean air and clean water now. In McLennan County, we have lots of streams and rivers, from the Brazos, we have the north, south, middle Bosque, Cow Bayou, they're all over the place. And we have Lake Brazos and we have Lake Waco. We get our drinking water there. Our farmers and ranchers are getting their water from these streams and from the wells that they help supply, the underground water that they help supply. We have a big tourism industry that is a big part of the draw, is the water recreational sports, from fishing to kayaking to water skiing. So our economy is even tied into it. So it's very important that we work on the water. And then the air we breathe, we have to breathe fresh air. In Texas, and I may get off your question a bit here, but in Texas, we have tons of sunlight and we have lots of wind. Right now, it's a political decision. We might have a little too much hot air. But right now, there is no reason why we should not have enough sunshine where everybody's air conditioning should be running on all this sun we've got right now. It's long days. There's not a cloud in the sky. We should be using solar and wind energy. And I'm going to go back to that property tax thing. There, you get a penalty on your property taxes if you put your own solar or wind turbine in, because it adds value to your home. So your property taxes go up a little bit to accommodate that. I think we should have you should have a tax break where at least you don't have to pay for that increase on your taxes by putting that on. But I think we should give a tax incentive for you to have clean air at your home, a clean energy at your home. So those are some of the ideas I have that we should be able to do to help make it affordable for people.
Okay, a follow-up question too. How do you balance controlling the climate change problems and still protecting our Texas energy jobs?
I'm going to preface this and let you know that I have some family members that may disagree with me on some of this because they have oil and gas leases. And they have been bemoaning the fact that their oil and gas leases have gone down, and I do feel their pain. I certainly don't want them to have big decreases in their income. That said, it's kind of like saying we're going to bring the horse and buggy back. The technology is antiquated now. What we need to do is take the people that are working in the oil and gas industry, and we need to train those people and make that training free and readily available so they can switch over to working in the clean energy. They could be working with solar, they could be working with wind industry, so that they don't lose their job. Now, are the people that have oil wells and gas wells going to lose some money? Yes, they are. And some of my family will too. And, but you can't we can't say we're going to just drive horse and buggies anymore. We should all be driving electric cars soon.
Okay, thank you. One final question on energy and climate change. Fracking. Would you be in favor of a moratorium on fracking?
Yes. I'm not just an archaeologist. I'm a geoarchaeologist and geomorphologist. And we already know that fracking has, it's not that I begrudge people getting that last little bit of oil out. My thing keeps going off here. What I begrudge is the fact that it's causing earthquakes. And I read all the professional journals for geology, and there's no doubt that that's what it's doing. And it is causing great damage. And the scariest thing is that we don't know what the long-term effects will be. What's going to happen in 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100. I won't be here to worry about it. But our generation's grandchildren will. And we don't know what's going to even happen even 20 years from now. Because we can only shove all that stuff down into the earth for so long before it's going to come back up. And it will come back up at some time. And we're going to have a major problem.
Okay, thank you. Let's move now to healthcare. And as you well know, with my rural background, McLennan County is historically a rural county. As much as we'd like to say Waco is our metropolis and their tourist market, and so forth and so on. But in rural Texas, healthcare is getting to a crisis stage, if not already. And closing of hospitals, too few doctors, too few medical professionals in areas like, for instance, let's go east and say in Groesbeck, in Marlin, south to Marlin, and those areas. What would be your focus, even though House District 56 is basically McLennan County, what would be your interest and focus for rural healthcare?
Well, I do have some good rural areas like, Riesel, and I go all the way, I have Moody, and we go out to Eddy. I still think of McGregor, and Crawford as rural to me. And I grew up in Woodway when it was rural. We were a 3B school when I started, with a 2-lane highway that's called Highway 84 now. Healthcare is a major problem across Texas. I think it's been leading to a rise in what I call the mother's death rate, the maternal mortality rate, which is one of my key issues. There are places in Texas where you have to drive 60 to 100 miles one way to get to an OBGYN. We've had 18 to 20 different regional hospitals shut down. Now that we're in a pandemic, this is now a major, it was a crisis before, it's 10 times worse, because we have people in McLennan County's hospital because they don't have a regional hospital anymore. And so how much time lagged before they were able to get to, to ICU or get to an ER? We need to go back and fund them. Now, how some of this happened is important because my opponent had part to do with that. The Texas legislature started passing laws for the last 10 years. They started to try to attack women's health care. And by doing that, they wanted to shut down Planned Parenthood. But what they succeeded in doing was passing laws that didn't stand up to the Texas Supreme Court. But at the same time, they shut down a lot of the smaller clinics in rural areas that couldn't meet the criteria they set out. And by the time it got struck down by the Supreme Court, they were already closed. And it also meant some of the rural hospitals couldn't meet those criteria. Then when they decided to not expand Medicaid, they were only one of 13 states now in the United States that decided not to do that. Well, without those funds and people going to these rural hospitals that didn't have insurance, then they couldn't pay their bill, the rural hospitals, the regional hospitals went under. So the first thing I would do is fight to get the expansion of Medicaid. Now, my opponent keeps saying, well, I just think money grows on trees. We've already paid for that. Our federal tax dollars that we paid with our IRS taxes that we pay dearly for every year, paid for that. And then we said, oh, no, we don't want that. That's my tax money. I want it back in my community. It's your tax money. You want it back in this community. And if we don't take it, it goes to another state. We could get there are 5 million Texans right now that lack health care. And with people losing jobs to COVID-19, it's going to go up. So that's the first thing I do. And then we're going to have to find the money to get those regional hospitals funded again. Okay, did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
So you're in favor of Medicaid. That's what I got from
Yes, yes. I like free money for health care.
One more focus.
It's our money. We want it back.
On rural Texas, too, is broadband. And today I'm sitting here in Waco in the office instead of in my living room because my internet is not working. So rural broadband, what can the legislature do?
Well, they need to do something. This was an issue last time I ran. My opponent, Doc Anderson, even had a quote town hall that was sponsored by his PAC and Power Texans and pretended to be interested. And they've done the Texas legislature did absolutely nothing. Nothing's changed. I know that Next Link got a big federal grant to put 600 cell towers so that they could have high-speed internet in Texas. But they only put them along the Red River, and most of their towers are going across the Red River into other states. When we give grant money, and that was a federal grant, we need to invest in the rural areas with high-speed internet, and it can be done by cell towers. They're shorter, and you have to put them closer together. They're about 140 to 150 feet tall, and you run them closer together than you do a telephone cell tower, for instance. So it doesn't take a lot of space to put them in, but they have to be closer together. But the problem is when you get companies like NextLink, and I don't want to pick on them, but one of the other companies that are doing this, they go to the places, they're still looking for places where they can get the most people signing up for their service. So we need to give money and basically hire them to put it out and give them a tax incentive or a money incentive to go to the rural areas that aren't going to have a lot of people. I travel all over Texas with my job. And I go, not here in McLennan County, we have places like you were talking. You live in McLennan County and you have trouble getting high-speed internet. There are places I can't get high-speed internet. My husband usually has to travel with his job with the government. And he had a boss getting mad at him because he wasn't answering an email back. And he said, well, I have to get till I can get high-speed internet. I can get internet. And she had forgotten, because she was sitting in Dallas, that not everybody has internet. Mm-hmm. I get into places where I can literally it might be days where I can even check my email because I can't get internet service. And now in a pandemic, we want kids to work from home. If they don't have high-speed internet, how are they going to do that? There's two things they need. They need a tablet that they may not own, and they got to have internet, which they may not be able to afford, or they may not even be able to get. So it's kind of like our grandparents here in McLennan County worked to get water lines to rural areas. I remember I've heard stories of my grandfather working to get electricity out to where I'm sitting right now. He worked in this, I'm in an old cottage that has been in my family for 3 generations. And it didn't used to have electricity and it didn't have water. And I've heard the stories of how he worked to get water lines run this far and how to get electricity run this far. And we need to just treat high-speed internet like water and like electricity that our grandparents did. And we just need to invest in the infrastructure.
We can all agree on that, I believe. I'm going to go with one final question, Katherine. And knowing as Democrats in McLennan County, it's difficult to get elected as a Democrat because of several different issues. One of those is our the misinformation, the stand or whatever that we have on guns and gun violence. What would be your message to a middle of the road Republican and your stand on guns, gun reform in the state legislature?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to go and try to take your guns away because I like my guns and I don't want you to take my guns away. And yes, I used plural. And I don't know how many guns my opponent has, but I would bet I probably have more. And for full disclosure, I said I was 3rd generation here in McLennan County. People can do their research. My grandfather was Fred B. Turner, owned Turner Drugstore at 13th and Austin. And he was, at the time of his death, one of the largest gun collectors in the United States. So I grew up around the gun culture. I did not let it define me. But I do believe that we need to have responsible gun laws. First, we need to enact the gun laws we have. And that means making sure that we keep guns out of the people who are not supposed to be having them. And that includes people that have been arrested or in trouble for domestic violence. That means we need to close the gun show buddy-to-buddy sale loophole. I went to Star, Texas on a girls' weekend. We weren't far from there at Lake Brownwood. We went over there to do what girls do on a weekend and go antique shopping. And they were having one of their antique days, and there was a table under the tree across from the police department where the guy had all his guns lined up with price tags. All I had to do to buy a gun, I went over there and had a chat with him. All I had to do to buy that gun was hand him the $50 or the $150, whatever we negotiated, take that gun and walk away, and it was perfectly legal. And I myself, my husband and I myself, have bought guns that way. We need to stop that. And yeah, it's going to be a pain, but you buy a used car, you got to go register it and pay sales tax on it, by the way. You've got to go register that. You got to get that tag registered. So we need to close that. We need to allow red tag laws so that if we have someone who is either showing warning signs of committing suicide or violence, that we can temporarily keep them from their guns or being able to buy a gun. Because right now, even if someone seems suicidal, you can't stop them. Even if someone is saying that you're thinking they might go and commit violence against somebody else, it's really hard to stop them from getting a gun legally. So we need to put those red flag laws into place. They would be temporary laws, so everyone gets upset about it. It's a temporary thing, but we need to have those in place to allow families and the police to be able to do their job. And we need to raise the age for possessing or buying an automatic weapon to 21. And before everybody gets all upset about that, we have age limits on a whole lot of things. We have age limits on when you can drive a car. We have age limits of 21 before you can buy alcohol and go to a club. And we have that about alcohol at 21 because your brain is not yet developed completely. Your cognitive skills are just not there until after 21. And so if we don't let you drink or go to a club because of those reasons, why would we let you have a semi-automatic or an automatic weapon? We should not let you have a semi-automatic weapon. That would still allow the kid, I grew up, hunting was a thing, as a teenager. But you would still be able to have a hunting rifle, but not a semi-automatic gun, because your brain's just not fully baked yet. And kids under 20, people under 21 are more likely to commit suicide, and you're more likely to commit suicide if you have a gun handy. So 3, probably not that popular, but I think realistic things we could do right now.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your answers and all of your time this evening. That concludes our questioning. I'll hand it back to Thom Hanson.
Mary, thank you very much for being the moderator this evening. You did a wonderful job. Katherine, thank you very much. I really enjoyed sitting here and listening to you. I want to thank our guest speakers and the moderator. Your leadership will help turn Texas blue. Thanks to everyone for participating, and please be sure to make a donation to Katherine's campaign and vote for Katherine on November the 3rd. Make sure you go to Katherine's website. That is ktp4texas.com. You can go there, you can make a donation. Also on the Facebook chat is a link to the donation, and there should have been a link for donations in the invitation you received. This event was streamed live on Facebook and it is recorded. Be sure to share the event on your social media, share it with your family, your friends, your frenemies, Republicans that you know. We need to work hard to get Miss Katherine Turner-Pearson into office. So that being said, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate it very much, and you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Thom. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Katherine, for being here.
Let's go get them. Come on, Katherine. Storm the State House.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
All right, everybody have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks.